Yo, what is going on, everybody? Zero here, back again with another album review. I hope you guys are doing well today. And in today's review, I'm going to be talking about the second studio album by the very, very well-known singer Billie Eilish called Happier Than Ever. This album is the follow-up to 2019's When We All Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go?, which was a much more darker and more alternative, trappier, I wouldn't say trappier, but more alternative album than Happier Than Ever. And I have a lot of the same opinions about this album that I do about the last one, because When We All Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go had some really standout tracks, and it also had some really boring and overly melodramatic tracks, and I was hoping I didn't have to say the same about this album, but I unfortunately do. For an album that's called Happier Than Ever, it's not really any more happy and, like, upgoing and upbeat than the last album, honestly. Like, this album has a few standout tracks, but most of them just feel really boring and uneventful and really plain. And it sucks that I have to say that, because I do feel like Billie Eilish has a lot of potential to, be more powerful and be more, emotional and inspiring, but that's unfortunately not the case with this album, and I'm going to talk about why. With a name like Happier Than Ever, you think Billie Eilish would be talking about, like, how happy she is and how far she's come since When We All Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go? And, how much happier she's been feeling these past few years, but no, honestly, it's relatively the same concept as the last album, and honestly, I feel like this album is much more dreary and uneventful than the last album. There are a lot of more acoustic, underproduced tracks that really have the same structure to them. It's just an acoustic guitar with, a verse and then a powerful chorus, and then it just goes back to the acoustic guitar. And what kind of sucks is that this album, past that, doesn't really have a lot of substance to begin with. I mean, there are a few tracks that do call back to her last album, like NDA, which was actually a pretty powerful track, and Therefore I Am, which sound a lot like older Billie Eilish, but past that, this album's substance, it's severely lacking in that it doesn't have a lot of really powerful or emotional tracks. It's kind of just like, it's in that gray area between emotional and powerful, where it's like, she has some good lyrics, and she's singing very melodramatically over this acoustic guitar or this piano, but it doesn't really get much more powerful other than that. Like, there's nothing that's gonna blow your mind or take you out of the edge of your seat and keep you on the edge of your seat. And it sucks to say that, but I guess that's just how it goes sometimes. I really thought that Billie Eilish would have had a lot more to bring us to the table with this album, but she unfortunately didn't. However, there are a few tracks that did stand out to me, and I'm going to talk about those tracks right now. I'd have to say my top favorite track on this album is actually the second to last track, the title track, Happier Than Ever, which starts off as you'd expect it to. It has Billie Eilish's really quiet, almost whispery, breathy singing over this plain, dramatic, sad, emotional, underproduced, I guess, acoustic guitar. But then I actually do get blown out of the edge of my seat with this really powerful chorus with electric guitar and drums, and that's something we've never heard Billie Eilish do before. At least it's something I've never heard Billie Eilish do before. It's a really rock-oriented song that really surprised me, especially for Billie Eilish, as she's mostly known for doing, poppier songs. But no, the chorus it gets pretty powerful, and she's actually talking about on the song how she's happier than ever now that she's away from this person that was causing her pain. And I really do like this track. This track actually had me dancing. Well, it didn't have me dancing. It had me slow dancing in my head. It had me vibing a little bit, and I really did enjoy this track. This is definitely my favorite track off the album, which is kind of not saying much because I don't have really many other favorites on this album. There are tracks that stand out to me, but I wouldn't really consider them my favorites. But this track in particular is powerful, it's emotional, it's basically everything that this album's title, says. It's Happier Than Ever, and I absolutely love this track. I believe the last single from this album, NDA, is also a track that really calls back to old Billie Eilish on When We All Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go? It has this really dark, bassy, alternative pop vibe with Billie Eilish's trademark whispery singing, and it definitely feels like a track on When We All Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go? In fact, if I had to reference any track from that album on this song, I would have to say it sounds a lot like Bury a Friend or You Should See Me in a Crown. Maybe not as much You Should See Me in a Crown as it does Bury a Friend, but it definitely has that dark, almost creepy vibe, and I really do enjoy this track. I think that this track is the closest to old Billie Eilish that we're gonna get, which is sad to say, but at least there are a few glimmers of hope here and there that kind of did raise my, it almost did it did heighten my expectations a little bit. So, you know what, I can give it that. And then there are the tracks that feel really boring and really uninspired and really unmotivated, such as the first track, Getting Older, which was a really underwhelming opener, I feel like. You know, because when you think of an album opener, they're supposed to be powerful and dramatic and cinematic, but unfortunately, Getting Older is none of those things. It's really boring and really almost nap-inducing. It's basically just trademark Billie Eilish singing with her whispered, breathy vocals over this plain acoustic guitar, which is unfortunately the case with a lot of tracks on this album. And I really felt that when I was listening to this track, I felt almost as, tired and bored as Billie Eilish did on this track. And that's sadly the case with a lot of the tracks on this album too, but this one in particular just felt really uninspired, and it was a really underwhelming opener. Maybe the lyrics had some glimmers of hope as they were pretty emotional, but past that, I didn't really get much out of this track, and it sucks to say, but yeah, it just wasn't my thing. The closer, Male Fantasy, another track that was supposed to be cinematic and powerful since it's a closer, just felt relatively the same as the opening track. It was just really boring acoustic guitar over really tired and unmotivated vocals with some glimmers of emotional lyricism here and there, but past that, this track doesn't really deliver much to the table, and I don't really understand why the track is called Male Fantasy, because if I listened to the song correctly, which I probably didn't, as I don't do with a lot of albums I listen to, I didn't really... when I hear the track Male Fantasy, I was expecting some lyrics about misogyny and toxic masculinity, but I don't know. I just didn't really get that out of this track, and this track just felt really boring to me too, along with the opener, so I guess maybe that's why I didn't go as deep into it as I could have, because it's kind of just relatively the same as the opener, but maybe I'll have to go back and listen to it and, see how I feel about it then. But as of right now, I didn't really enjoy that track either. I feel like the track is more or less a Hate You, Love You by Olivia O'Brien inspired track, where basically you're talking about the girl and how much better she is than, you, and how, the guy she used to be with is so much different now that he's with her, and you hate the way, she looks at you when he's with him and stuff like that, and you love him, but you wish you could hate him, and you're trying your hardest to hate him, but at the end of the day, you'll always love him. And I found that aspect of the track to be a little bit predictable because of that, and that's why I didn't really enjoy this track as much as I could have. I think Hate You, Love You is a good song, and I think this song is okay, but I feel like it doesn't really deliver on the topic that well. In some cases it does, especially in the second verse and in the first verse, but in the chorus it's more or less just the typical, oh, I hate you, I love you, but I wish I could hate you kind of crap, and I just wasn't really vibing with it that much. Overall, I'd say this album is kind of a mixed bag for me. Like When We All Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go? It has some really powerful and touching tracks, but then it also has some really underwhelming and not very, motivating and very inspiring and very well thought out tracks. So it's kind of sad to say that, because I do feel like Billie Eilish has a lot more potential than she delivered on this album, and a lot more than she delivered on When We All Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go? But I feel like she delivered more potential on that album than she did on this one. But she still delivered some pretty good potential on this one too. I feel like the best tracks on this album were the singles, specifically Therefore I Am, Lost Cause, NDA, because those are really the only tracks where we get really, vibes of old Billie Eilish, but past those tracks, maybe there are a few tracks that are powerful and really engaging to listen to, but I can't really say that for a lot of the tracks on this album. I'm feeling a light 6, maybe a strong 6.5 on this album, and I guess I'm just gonna, listen to the singles and just those. So, yeah, sorry to people that really like this album, but I just wasn't vibing with it that much. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. Please drop a like on it if you did, and subscribe if you're new. I upload reviews like this a lot. I'm going to start uploading reviews more. I'm sorry I haven't lately. I've just been really busy with work. And yes, I have a job now. It's crazy. I mentioned that in a glimpse of my future part 2 video. But yeah, I have a job now, so I've been busy with that. But I'll be uploading another review very soon, so don't you worry. But until the next one, my name is Zero, and I will see you guys in the next review. Or next video, whatever it is I upload. Peace.